to, perfect. Okay, so here's what we're doing, folks. We are going to do an actual demo of setting up an organization and then getting 2 contributors going, okay? So what I'm gonna do here is make not just a new repository, I'm gonna make a new organization here. Only one person is doing this stage. And I'm gonna do it for free, because GitHub gives us a lot for free, okay? Now, the organization account name, this will be, this needs to be unique. So I'll do Singh, Borsinger, and Gomez. And that'll be our consulting firm, okay? Now the contact email, I'm just gonna put my personal email here. And this belongs to me personally, right? I'm not gonna attach this to the American Red Cross or a company account or anything like that, right? So far, so good. You name your account. So in all of GitHub, there is not a user or an organization named Singh, Orsinger, and Gomez. Okay. So I'm going to click next, and this fires up the organization. I'm really happy to see this next screen here, because what this means is GitHub has actually made it easier to invite people to the organization. The very extreme, invite people. So what I'm going to do here is invite Ravinder, 79, and then just for sake of argument, I'll add Adam. What did you get? Oh, is that it? Adam?
Go down to Adam Dash.
I know that.
I see that.
That's when my hair was like the most awkward length possible. It's right when we were taking headshots. It's perfect. I'm keeping it forever.
So you add your team member here and then complete the setup. And GitHub's going to make sure that you're you. Okay. Now, if you want to, before Ravinder starts his screen share, I'll have him open up his email address and open up the email. So that email is ready to go. And then Adam, whenever you're ready to switch over the screen share.
Sure.
Yeah, I have email and I'm going to hit here. Right.
Okay. So I've got my team member added, and then switch over back to me. Now I'm still sitting in front of some more options, right? And GitHub's trying to do a little survey to get to know us better. So I'm going to say writing code and 1 to 5 people, open source projects. What do you plan to do in the next 7 days? What is this, customs? Like, I'm going to manage custom collaborator, but I do not have an existing repository for the project yet. And I click submit. Okay. So y'all saw that Ravinder accepted his invitation. From the organization view, and organizations are kind of like, I mean, this has more in common with your personal account than a repo. So I could add more people, which I'll add them a little bit later. This is the part that's really important. Since I'm the individual who created the organization, I'm automatically the owner of that organization. But you'll see that Ravinder's listed as a member, and we want everybody to be a first-class citizen and an administrator and owner of this project, right? So what I'm going to do next to Ravinder, he's already accepted that invite. Y'all saw him do that. This would say pending if he had not accepted yet. Like, because you can just add people as contributors, but they don't have to accept, right? What I'm going to do is go to the role, change the role, and make my team member an owner. So everybody has the same access all around. Okay, and it now says owner. We still have no repository. As the person who's setting up the repository, only one person's going to set up the repo. I'm going to create a new repository here, and I will say, for the repository name, we want this to be public. Right? You want to be able to share your work on LinkedIn, on GitHub, on your resume, all that kind of good stuff. We're going to say, for the project, HR, attrition, analysis. Just for sake of argument, and then we'll say analysis HR data to predict drivers of attrition. And I'm going to make this repository. Repository is live on GitHub. My personal favorite way of cloning repos or setting repos up in the first place is to make an empty one on GitHub, copy that clone address, that SSH clone address, want to communicate through SSH because it makes things easier. You're not prompted for your password all the time. I'm going to fire up my terminal here. So I have an empty folder here called Git Teamwork as an example. This Git Teamwork, this would be the same thing as your code up data science folder or something like that. And I'm going to clone that HR attrition analysis, and I'm going to change directories into that HR attrition analysis. And there's nothing in there, right? So on my end, what I'm going to do, just so I have something to create here, I'm going to make a new file called, you guessed it, gitignore. Right, and inside of gitignore, I'm going to do env.py and .ps store. All I'm doing is adding a little bit of work so that Ravinder can pull it. Git status is going to show that that file is not yet tracked. And what do we do at this point? We git add. And we can add the file by file name, we get add everything in the folder. And then I'm going to git commit and I'll say add gitignore. And then I push. The nice part of cloning first, and I love living on this hill of cloning first, or making a GitHub and cloning, I don't have to specify -u. I don't have to specify origin. It's all set up for me. The right branch name is all set up for me. So at this stage in the game, in the collaboration, I'm going to say, hey, Ravinder, could you work on the README? And then we'll do the changing of the guard on the screen share.
Great. First, I need to clone this repository right, on my computer. I don't have anything right now, so I'm going to make sure I want SSH. Copy this. Go here. That's where I want to clone it. I'm going to say git clone. Now I have this one over here. I can say jar analysis. And I can make a new file here. It status, so I have this file right now. So I'm going to do a git add. Commit. There you go.
Okay, so we've communicated, Ravinder has done some work. That work exists in GitHub now, but it doesn't exist on my computer yet. Right? I only have the gitignore folder. So let's say my next task, we've collaborated. My next task is to make an acquire.py script, right? Now, if I just go run off and start working on my my work, that would be a little premature. So I'm going to pull to make sure that I've got Ravinder's work. Now I have the README. So now I'm going to do work to that README. And we'll say README file, and I'm going to make some changes here. I'm going to say predicting drivers of attrition. So far, so good. I've made some changes to the README. And I realize I'm making a very small example, so let me make a little bit larger example. I'm going to make an acquire.py script. And in this acquire.py script, I'm going to import pandas, SPD. And then I'm going to say, make a happy little function here, get data, and we'll make a data frame. And I'm going to read a CSV. So I'm doing work. I have a CSV hosted on the web. I'm going to read that CSV, and then I'm going to return that data frame. So this is raw data. It's not prepped yet. But now, when I go to my terminal, status is going to show I've modified the README. I made new changes to it, and I've added a brand new file called acquire.py. So I'm going to add them both. I'll commit. I'll say update. I'll say add. Acquire. So if in our collaboration, Ravinder's next task is to do some prep on this. We're not going to do the whole project for y'all right now. What Ravinder's going to do, if you want to switch at him, is he'll need to pull my work. So you're pulling. So you have your partner's work, then you do your work, and then you push your work. And that's the hokey pokey. It's really the hokey pokey. It's what it's all about. Y'all feeling crazy? Would y'all like to see one of these merge conflicts we're talking about?
Hey, Ryan, real quick,
Yeah, this is much more important than doing new stuff. Yes.
you were able to overwrite his README or his, yeah.
Yeah, just like you're able to overwrite your own work.
Hey,
Right.
me or is the floor shaking? I'm sorry. Like, is it normal?
The floor shaking? There's not a lot of earthquakes in South Texas, but I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not-
I'm literally feeling like
I can feel it too.
So I mean, it could be an old building or it could be like literally the best of the air shit.
No, I can feel it. I know what you're talking about.
Okay. He's
I don't know.
Let's hope it doesn't get crazy.
I
Sorry for that.
like,
Yeah, so I did overwrite Ravinder's work in the read, right? Because he said this is a README. I put a different title. What I'm going to do here. So that's the workflow. It's kind of lather, rinse, repeat. Pull your partner's work, do your work, add, commit, and push your work. And if you push, we're going to give you one more little demo here. Ravinder, would you mind adding something new somewhere? Yeah, you're good on Ravinder there. Maybe just a comment or something that prepare. Whoa. Shouldn't that have something? Oh, you're doing a prepare. Oh yeah, you're doing new work. This is perfect.
Yeah, this is, then I'm gonna push it.
So this is critical. What y'all are about to see is probably the most common thing that's going to happen with your group work. 95% of the time with your group work.
Are we supposed to be able to see what Ravinder's doing?
So what Ravinder's done is he's added, he's committed, and he's pushed the prepared script, right? On my end, I'm going to work on something completely different. I'm going to open up the README and notice I don't have Ravinder's prepared. Why do I not have Ravinder's prepared? I have not pulled. But the most common thing that will happen is you're just on a roll and you forget to pull your partner's work. So I'm going to show you what happens. I'm going to open up that README again, and let's say predicting drivers of employee attrition. Data source is from IBM's HR data set. Goal. Use compensation and compensation, travel, frequency, and survey responses to predict attrition. So I'm working on the README happily along, right? I save my work. I commit my work. Update README. And I try to push my work. This is our pattern, right? I try to push my work. Now, when you see red and yellow in your terminal, that doesn't mean freak out. That means slow down and read. That's what red in your terminal means, is read, right? And y'all have already learned that from Python errors, right? So here's what we're seeing. We're seeing a message that says, GitHub is telling me, Ryan, you're rejected. I'm rejecting your changes. And that seems scary because it's red and there's rejection in there. And I might have to talk to my therapist about that, but that's cool. Therapy's awesome stuff, right? I get a message about an error and it says, failed to push some refs to GitHub. Now what this means, refs means your work, references to your work. Now this hint is trying to help us. Updates were rejected because the remote, and in your mind's eye, just think remote means GitHub. GitHub has work that I do not have locally. And y'all already know what that is. It's Ravinder's prepare script. This is usually caused by another repository pushing to the same ref. You may want to first integrate the remote changes, for example, git pull, before pushing again. So 95% of your teamwork is going to look like this. You tried to push your work. It says updates were rejected because you need to pull. What do? You pull. So now I pull. And when you pull, a pull is another commit. You see this opened up my editor automatically and says merge branch main of GitHub. This is an automatically generated commit message that says, because commit messages are just statements of facts, like save games, right? I don't need to write my own message. GitHub already did that for me. In the history of commits, what we're seeing here is that I'm integrating Ravinder's changes. So all we do here is save it and close it. And what we see here, that was my editor crashing for some silly reason. Don't worry about it. What we see here is when you do a git pull, you see the file names that have been changed, and you see the number of lines changed. And then the green plus is how many lines were added. The red minus is how many lines were removed. So somebody refactors something, you'll see a little bit of green, a little bit of red. When I check my file system, I see Ravinder's work, the prepare.py script that he was adding on. Well, I still have to get my changes to the README out there, don't I? See how this is all asynchronous? I didn't need to pull Ravinder's prepare in order to work on the README, but in order to push my README, I needed to get his changes. Because Git, not just GitHub, but all of Git won't allow me to overwrite my lack of Ravinder's work. It won't allow me to overwrite his work with my lack of his work, right? I've got to pull his work before I push mine.
So that commit that you did was still in there, it's just sort of queued and didn't happen, so you don't have to commit it, you just put.
It did happen. It did happen. Yeah, and I'll show you what that looks like. Yeah, I'll show you what that looks like visually. So let's go to our source of truth here. I haven't refreshed my browser in a little while, so I'm going to refresh it. And this is what we've got. We have 6 commits between the two of us. We see the contributors down there, right? We can even check the contributors and see, not that lines of code are the only thing that matter, but we can see how many lines of code, how many lines removed for each contributor. We see I added 14 lines and removed 2. Or removed 1 line in each file, is what this is trying to say, I believe. So GitHub has the history of all commits. Right here, if you click on number of 6 commits, it's right underneath the code. what we'll see in the timeline here, started with a git ignore, then Ravinder made first commit of the README. Then I added acquire, Ravinder added prepare. And see these 5 and these 6 minute marks. They didn't happen exactly at the same time, but they were concurrent in a way. But that's why this merging is so important. This merging is me pulling in Ravinder's work to integrate it into, so I don't push my work and overwrite his old work. His new work with my lack of his work. I'll give you a larger preview. This is what we do on the instructional side. We take turns doing lessons and exercise reviews. Y'all see this all the time, right? Check this out. This isn't something we demo so often, but when I look at the commits, we see my commit from earlier this morning. We see where this started. Gosh, 22 days ago, so middle of December. Ravinder made the first commit, and he did the Wrangle lesson, then pushed the exercise solutions the next day, so that you don't have to go back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. This one person just makes 5 commits in a row. That's cool. Then Adam rolls in and does the Explore. I remember that Explore lesson notebook, right? So, and then Ravinder did the k-means yesterday. And then I added my OK clusters. Now what? Then sequentially, Ravinder pushed his modeling exercise solutions, and see how these two things weren't dependent on each other. So they could happen at the same time without any other coordination. That's part of the distributed part of the distributed version control in Git. And then the last commit I did in this repo is add notes on the job labeling data. So I made a little tweak. And you can see, check this out, one more thing. We could do 6 months just focused on Git, I promise you. But if you look at the list of all commits and you see the hash, you can look at the changes from that hash. And what I'm seeing here is I removed a color palette. I'm colorblind from my notebook. I removed a couple of empty lines. That's what \n is a return character. I know that's a little small. So the left is the old, the right is the new, red is remove, green is add. So I removed some code I wasn't using. And then I swapped out this piece of markdown, step 2, name the clusters in English if they make sense. And I changed that to name the clusters in English if they make sense. And then I added a sentence to that markdown. Okay. So if y'all hit any snags or hit a merge conflict or have any issues, the easiest way to troubleshoot Git is to have a nice string of commits. If you don't have a whole bunch of commits, I don't have a time machine to help you with, right? If y'all both do a bunch of work today and tomorrow, and y'all's actual first commit is Thursday, then I don't have a time machine to help y'all, right? But if you have projects like this with lots of commits, you can go back in time, you can check what happened, etc. It's great.
Would you say there's times when it's better to have fewer commits, like you're getting overwhelmed if you have too many?
Yeah. It's totally fine. Like this is really granular, right? Really small. It's totally fine to make commits once you finish a feature. I make a minimum of 1 a day, but even that's not capturing all what you did before lunch. Yeah. So we've got this recorded. We're going to get this recording shared with y'all in case you want to review this in the future. In the interest of y'all's attention, and I know y'all want to start working on a project, we're not going to demo the how to make a merge conflict right now. But they might happen, they might not. It's not a badge of honor if you get one. It's not a badge of honor if you miss one. They just happen from time to time.